All right, we're live. Hi, everyone. Woo, I'm so excited. So don't mind me. I'm so happy to have Casey Campbell on the show today. She just dropped her book, Flying in the Face of Fear. I'm just going to open it up with our sponsor, Fortis Life Group. It's a national veteran-led independent insurance group educating transition service members, vet-owned businesses, and veterans on all their life insurance and business needs. Find them at fortislifegroup.com. That being said, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I got the book. Like I said, everyone, please go check that out. Amazon. I'll drop a link in the comments. But it is an amazing book. I have marked it all up. And of course, we're going to talk about that today. But like, how's this book launch been going?
It's exciting, honestly. I mean, it's been such a work in progress. I spent 2 to 3 years ish writing it, and then publishing and marketing, and now it's out in the world. Which honestly, it's like a little scary, but it's also really exciting. And you hope it resonates with people in a way that will impact them or touch their lives in some way. And now getting some of that feedback has just been, I don't know, it's heartwarming to just hear that it's making an impact for people.
It is like when I was reading it, just the first chapter about like kind of just how you led up to get into the academy, resonated with me a lot. Just as a woman, young woman, especially back in my career too. Like, you are definitely someone to aspire to. I'm not just blowing smoke. I mean it. I've been a big fan of yours for a while now, and I just wanted to thank you. I mean, there was a few years ago where I reached out to you when I think you were still at the academy,
Mhm.
and you're very kind and forthcoming, and I appreciate that. And it says a lot about you. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I try to help where I can because I think, so many people helped me in my career. I didn't do it alone. And whether they were like made a connection or just there to listen or tell a story, you share their experience, I think it's all adds value. So I'm just trying to give back in a little bit of a way.
For sure. I mean, and to segue your value add, like at the end of every chapter, and I'm not going to tell everyone because they need to go buy the book, but at the end of every chapter, you have like considerations for leaders, like bullet points, and
Mhm.
I absolutely love them. That's like everyone, like, one, you should buy it because it's her and it's an amazing story, but two, like for just leaders, like these are amazing tips that you give people that are actionable.
Yeah, and that was ideally that was the intent, right? Was that there's stories that are fun and interesting and exciting, but really it's what did I pull from those experiences? And I just wanted it to be considerations to think about, right? Like it's maybe it won't work for everybody, and that's okay. I don't think there's one right way to do leadership. I do think there are some wrong ways.
Yes.
But I think, that it's considerations. It's to give you maybe just a little bit different perspective, or if you've been a leader for a long time, it's like this spark of, oh, that's something new. I'm going to try that. Or if you're a brand new leader, it's like, okay, this gives me some ideas of where to go from here. So that's the idea behind it. So it's good to hear that you like it.
I did, and then once I noticed after like chapter one, I'm like, oh, there's more of these. So super loved it, and like on page 16 here, one of the things you had in there was if you're a leader and you want the people in your organization to be grittier, create a grittier culture. And I wanted to see if you could just speak to that because I it completely resonates with me. But
Yeah, I think it's hard, right? We are all going to face challenges. We're going to make mistakes. There are going to be things that go wrong. And so how do you demonstrate as a leader that when those things go wrong, you're not going to freak out? It's just like calmly let's learn from this. But now we got to do it better. Now we have to improve. We're going to get back up again. It's the rejections, it's the failures, and people are really, as a leader, people are watching to see what you are going to do in that moment. Do you freak out? Do you get upset? Or do you just like, hey, we're going to learn from this, but we are going to get better. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to do it better the next time.
yes, and I tell that the clients as well. Like you have to, it's the language used. It's a we
Mm-hmm.
thing. Even if like at the end of the day, failure is always on the leadership, and that's how the accountability should be. Even if it's maybe for lack of better terms, one of our airmen was the ones who messed up. It's still a we thing. We have to make them better. We have to take accountability that we could have done, should have, could have, would have.
Yeah, I mean, then that's the whole idea behind this idea of sharing success, right? When we succeed as a team, but we as leaders own the failure, right? It could be something that someone in our organization did, but Did they have the training? Did they have the resources? Were we there to have their back? Did their leadership have their back? There's a lot of different ways to look at it, but I think that's the idea. You share success and you own that failure.
I concur. And of course, your chapter 2, wait, or is it 3? Just get 2, is creating a wingman culture. Obviously, me being the culture lady, I'm like, can't wait for this one. And but on page 29, you talked about leading my peers was challenging. I learned early on that you cannot please everyone as a leader. And we kind of talked about that offline, like, we're not pizza. You can't please everyone. But, could you speak to that experience?
Yeah, I think, it's this human nature, right? As people, as leaders, we want to be liked, it feels good. But I think, what I've realized over time is that you really can't please everyone. You have to make the right decision because it's the right decision. And sometimes that's a tough, hard decision. As long as you can kind of back it up and explain your why behind it, your reasoning, I think that goes a long way to helping people understand. Still doesn't mean everybody's going to like it, but it is, you have to make the right decision. The intent shouldn't be to please everyone. And, I say that now, right? What we were talking about before is this, like, it's still hard. It's hard for me today, right? I would love for everybody to love this book, but I get it. I can't please everyone. I have to write the book with my intention, my why, my purpose, and my passion behind it. But that is something as a young leader I really struggled with. And thankfully, I got some early opportunities to realize that it's just not possible. It is just not possible. And once we can kind of move past that, I think we become better leaders.
I totally agree. I mean, there's a sense of imposter syndrome, I think, especially being, and I don't say this often as a crutch, but like being a female in a male-dominated industry, there's a kind of imposter syndromes of like, we try so hard to overcompensate of like, proving our worth and showing them these things that we might get our heads maybe more than most. But yeah, like you said, I'm glad that like early on you were able to conquer that, because I think it is something hard to conquer, because it took me a while in my career to get past that.
It's so funny you say that, because I think back to the opportunity when I was a very first squadron commander, and I was like, there's this excitement, there's nervousness that goes with it, right? But I had this idea, I guess, of this leader that I thought I should be. I was tough, combat proven fighter pilot, this tough exterior. Like, I felt like there was this expectation of who I thought I should be and who everyone else thought I should be as a leader. And what I realized, thankfully, because some of my young airmen taught me a lesson, was that really they just wanted me to be human and be authentic and true to who I was. To be able to admit mistakes, to ask their ideas and opinions. And thank goodness that happened so early in my time as a leader, to kind of get that feedback and have those discussions, because it totally transformed the way that I acted as a leader. And it was so much more comfortable. It was so much more me. It's just, I think sometimes we go into leadership with a perception that it should be different. And the truth is we just need to be who we are, be authentic and true to who we are, and really work to create those connections.
Absolutely. People are a lot more intuitive than most give credit. And you can, especially for me, I don't know, I can't speak for everyone, but like I can see immediately when someone's being fake, or just not their true authentic self. Not that they're trying to be fake, they're just trying to be something they're not. And it's just like, you get a lot more respect a lot quicker if you just come out the gates being who you are.
Yeah, just be human, right? Like, it is okay to be, for me, I struggled a little bit with like this idea that, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a fighter pilot, I'm a leader, I'm doing all of these things. And sometimes I felt like, I guess maybe that like I had to hide a part of it. Like it would make me seem weak or vulnerable in some way. And the truth was that once I just kind of connected with all of that and shared that with my team, like that's what they loved. That's what they wanted to be a part of. And it helped me relax and actually create true, authentic connections, like really create trust with my team.
Yeah. And I'm sure from a mental health aspect, once you got over that and conquered that you probably were just, I don't know, maybe in a better mental state. So you weren't always fighting your emotions.
Yeah, it's just, well, it's easier to be true to who you are, right? And it was almost like a relief, like just this fact that like, of course, in the middle of my change of command ceremony is when my 3-year-old son decided to come sit on my lap. And, not very proper military protocol, but like that moment of like having this fear almost of like what my team is thinking of me. And then to realize later, they're like, that was awesome. We loved it. Like it makes you human. It makes you real. It
Yes.
just, yeah, made it so much more comfortable.
It's like the work from home thing, that a lot of us
Yeah.
had to do for a long time. Got my dog over here doing basset hound things, and like we all have these lives. We all put our boots on the same way, and we all have lives at home. And like I think 2020, I guess for what it is, like it at least did that. All the bad,
Yeah.
like it made people realize like we all have our things.
Yeah, I mean, if there's something good to come out of the pandemic, right? It was this idea of we kind of welcomed people into our homes, into who we are. And, I think it turned out in that way. It was a good thing. It like allowed us to just open up a little bit and let people see us, in our home spaces.
Right? I agree. And the segue to, our people and everything, and y'all will see this in the book because you're going to buy it, I hope. But you had your girlfriends here that you graduated with the academy with. And I love that because there's something to be said about feminine energy that I love. And we always have to have our girls. So I wanted to, see what you wanted to say about them.
Yeah. I met these friends at the academy and during basic training. And who would have known that we would have all progressed and, throughout our careers in the Air Force, we all ended up making it to the rank of colonel. Some of us are still in, some of us are now retired, but we're married, we have kids, and we still connect, we still keep in touch. And I think more than anything, like we support each other through the ups and downs of life and leadership and motherhood, and share ideas and concerns. And I think it's always, I don't know, I just have found that it's so important to like find your team, find those people that will, support you, but also challenge you, right? Like if you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, like they're going to be like, hey, you said you're going to do this. So they kind of have your back and hold you accountable. And I think it's so important. It's been so powerful throughout my career, my personal life, just to have people on my side like that.
For sure. There's something to be said about having kind of a sounding board of a peer group that you trust.
Yeah.
Like you said, that helps hold you accountable, and it is super positive. And I hope more people, have that. You're not alone. You have peers that, you can go to. Within this page, you talked about, yes, it was a competitive environment, but we recognize we performed better by helping and encouraging each other. And I'm sure, there's a lot to be said about y'all's career trajectory, and how that went because you had this good support system.
I think think we find it in a lot of places, whether it's just like our job, right? You're potentially competing for promotion or raises or whatever it is. And, in the military, we were constantly competing against each other for how we racked and stacked, for promotions, for, you name it, assignments, things like that. So there is a competitive nature to it, but at the same time, like you can't go out on your own first, then you're not a team player and nobody really wants that around them. So yeah, it's competitive, but you learn to like work to be at your best while encouraging and helping others to be at their best. I think it can be a really unique environment when it works well, when you support each other, you study together, you challenge each other to do better. But that's the whole idea, right? If we lift others and the people around us, then our team performs better.
Absolutely. There's something to be said about the whole one team, one fight, that we talk about in the military. And it's not just cliche, it's real. I've noticed that in the corporate world and government spaces outside the military as well. Like people get competitive, as peers to the point where it's not conducive. It's petty, and there's not you got, let's say, supply and maintenance, and y'all are bickering with each other back and forth and making everything hard on each other. Whereas we have a mission is together to, get these planes in the sky. Us having these issues is not conducive to the mission and the vision. So we're not fighting each other. We're fighting, someone overseas.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I've been in a few different units that the relationship between ops and maintenance has been so critical. Well, it is in every unit, but sometimes I see it work better in others, and where I, thankfully, I guess in my very first assignment, which was at Pope Air Force Base, we deployed nonstop. And to have this conducive environment, to have people that work together that are, really going to bend over backwards for each other, was huge. I mean, we couldn't have done, there's no way to launch airplanes without maintenance. And, obviously we need the pilots to fly the planes. So working together, supporting each other, like I just look back on that time, and some of them are our early deployments, and how good that relationship is. And honestly, we're still in touch today. Like that's the beauty of social media now, as I've been able to connect with so many of the crew chiefs and expediters and you name it that have reached out over the years, just because we share that common bond.
Yeah, and I told you offline, but I'm going to plug you here as well. My best friend was stationed in Korea a while back, and to this day, you have people talking about how much of a badass you are, and it's true. And if you can get maintainers to say that, that really means something.
Well, and it is about treating people with respect, and simple, right? Treat them the way that you would want to be treated. So why not take a few minutes when you walk out to the flight line to have a conversation with your crew chief? Like, tell them thank you for what they have done to get the airplane ready to go. I mean, I think back to like so many moments, just spending that little bit of time with them. And I'm like, I love it too. It's not like a thing that I have to do. It's just like, these are the people that take care of me. And guess what? When you're nice to them and respect them and value their expertise, then it just really creates this connection that makes it all work better.
Right. And me being a prior maintainer, and I was cut trained to be a crew chief on the 35 at one point, and I always wanted this, what I fantasized about, of like, this, my pilot really likes me and we have this cool bond, and it's like, whoo, I never got that. It was like they got, it's 35 is what it is. Not everyone's the same, but I did never even get acknowledged. And so I just want to thank you for being that pilot that, leads from the front and does what we all as maintainers wish we had,
Yeah. And I wish we would instill that at a time in a young pilot's time in their training of like, this is standard. This is the way that we should do business. I think it's a little bit like leadership in many ways, in that you're going to learn from good and bad. And I'm sure you realize very quickly that, that didn't make you feel good, and you were never going to do that for anybody else. And so I guess I try to look at the positive here of what can we learn from the negative experience. But, it is, you're not always going to be an environment where everybody is acting in the way that you want them to. And it's just, how do you fix it? How do you adjust? How do you adapt?
Right. And like I said, being a maintainer, like I said offline, that, there's good and bad everywhere. So I just, like you said, I learned from even bad experiences it's like some of the best leadership lessons are what not to be like in some situations. But I just want to thank you for being the pilot that we all appreciate. So thank you. Of course, in the culture chapter as well, you had talked, a distinct culture exists anytime a group of people are in consensus about how we do things around here and why.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in the why. I think, in the military, I guess sometimes maybe gets a bad rap because it's like, well, we have an order, we execute. And I do think there are moments for that. Like, believe me, I get it. Sometimes we follow the order because that's the order, and we go and we execute. But I think the majority of the time as a leader, like, it adds tremendous value if you can explain the why and get buy-in, because people then are more interested in doing it on their own. They're more interested in supporting it if they understand the reason behind it. I mean, it doesn't take that much time. It's not that difficult to do, especially when it's, when you're trying to create this culture where everybody feels like they're a part of something, that it's bigger than themselves, that they're willing to like reach out and help others in the organization. If they understand the why and they have this kind of common mission, vision, purpose, it makes things work so much more smoothly. To me, it's really critical. And I've tried to do it throughout my leadership experiences. I've tried to share it with the people that I've mentored and coached, like, just take a few minutes and explain the why. Is it a change in policy? Is it you're moving somebody's positions around? Like, if you don't explain the why a lot of the time, then people make up their own why. And it may not be in line with your why.
Yeah, that is huge. And I would never compare children to adults, but even with kids, we know, whether we've raised them or been them, me being one at one point, I remember, like, if you didn't give me a why, I'm probably going to go do the thing you told me not to do. Like, I need a why. Or like you said, as an adult in these situations, like if you don't give someone the why, they might misconstrue the why, and it's just not motivating. Whereas you can, like mission and vision, that's why I instill in clients, like it's so important for you to have these not only established but mean something, not just BS on a wall. They got to mean something.
Yeah.
Um,
Can the people that are on your team, could they repeat them? Like, are they straightforward? Do they believe in them? It makes a difference.
yeah, like with even values, the Air Force has the excellence in all we do, service before self, and integrity. And there's something to be said about being in alignment with values. And for me, one of the reasons why I got out of the Air Force anymore is because just personally, I was like, I don't want to do this service before self anymore. I don't. And it's not any bad on the Air Force. It's just not something I'm in alignment with anymore. I want to go do the voodoo I want to do. And instead of, that wouldn't be good if I didn't align with the values and I stayed. So something to be said with all the listeners out there as you're looking for a new company, or your company wanting to bring people in, you got to have those alignment.
Yeah, to be in alignment with what they believe and how they work, and find something that you have purpose and passion in. One of the things that I've been able to do since retiring is I'm now on the boards for the Special Operators Transition Foundation. And it's been so interesting to, watch so many people transition and just the common struggles that we all have. And I don't think it's necessarily unique for military to civilian, but I think anytime we do something new, anytime we change career paths, like it's about finding our new why, our purpose, our passion, and to ensure that it is aligned with what we believe in. When you find that, like now it doesn't feel like work anymore, which is really nice.
Yes, it's so true. You had, excuse me, in the back here, and like I said, everyone, maybe if you're just joining in right now, at the end of every chapter, she has considerations for leaders, some really great bullet points. And at the end of the culture chapter, which obviously is my favorite, I'll just talk to one of them. Clearly defined roles and responsibilities for each team member. And I feel, like you said, that's huge.
Yeah. I find that it is often missing in many organizations. I do some executive coaching as well. And I find that there is sometimes confusion over what is my role? Who am I responsible for? Who am I responsible to? And it creates confusion. So to make sure that everyone on the team, even if you don't have it as an individual, well, maybe if the people that work for you, then maybe that's something to consider is, do they clearly understand the role and responsibility where they fit into the bigger picture?
Right. And I know that if you don't have these roles and responsibilities defined, like you said from earlier, they're going to make it up themselves. And then when it comes to feedback sessions and everything else, everyone's not going to be on the same page. So make sure you're doing risk mitigation from the beginning and figuring this out so that everyone's not confused.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't mean that it can't adjust or that we can't adapt it over time, but at least have a common starting point so you can have those feedback sessions, so you can have the discussions and then adjust from there.
Right. And speaking of that, I got channeled this immediately, like Colonel Teschner, which I know he actually was my F-22 commander at one point. We went to Kadena together on a deployment, but he talks about debriefing, and obviously you being a pilot, debriefing. I used to be, when I went flight crew, I understand the debrief as well. And can you talk to that? Because I know you have like great things to say about debriefing and its importance.
Yeah, Cujo Teschner is a good friend of mine as well, but he wrote a great book called Debrief to Win. I have a small chapter section where I talk about debrief, but he goes very in depth. But to me, a debrief, like I use this now in my personal life and professional life outside the military, because to me, a debrief is so powerful. It is where we pull the lessons from an experience. And it is where we talk about the objectives, where we succeed, where we fail. I think it's important to talk about the things that we did well so that we can repeat them again. But we really drill down into the mistakes, what went wrong, and really ask why. What is the root cause of why that mistake happened? Because I think sometimes we can take the easy path of blame an individual, blame something without really drilling down to that root cause. Mm-hmm. Then you have to take it that step further and actually, okay, so what is the lesson learned from that? And then you can learn all the lessons you want, but now you have to do something differently the next time. That's kind of the critical piece. So for me, you have the learned with just, even more broadly so that others can learn too. And then you ensure that the next time you do it differently. You take those lessons, you learn from them.
Right. There's, like we said earlier, there's always something to be said about learning from our mistakes, or what not to do, or what not to be. And
Yeah.
the ego has to be dropped in order for that to be accomplished successfully.
Yeah. I mean, to me, in a debrief, you check your ego at the door, right? Because you're going to be open and honest about your mistakes, what you did well, but what you could improve on. And in a debrief, and we check our rank at the door, right? So the youngest member, the least experienced member in the flight, needs to be able to provide feedback to the more experienced members. That's the only way that the whole team gets better. Does it always work like that? No, I've seen some scenarios where it hasn't worked, and you know what? Then it's not a really good debrief, because no one's really being honest.
Right.
But checking your ego, checking the rank at the door, it just creates for an open, honest discussion. You kind of have to have a good work culture, right? You got to have that environment of trust for it to really happen, to be effective. And again, that's on the leader to create that culture where people feel safe, right? That psychologically safe place to provide feedback.
Yeah. I mean, again, the whole leading from the front thing, I remember I was on the E4B as flight crew, but we had maintainers who flew with us. And we were in Romania somewhere, and the AP was super high. We had to do maintainers had to do something that was very high up there, and our the equipment they had at Romania didn't work. Like, it was like a lift. So our very tall aircraft commander actually went out there and helped maintenance, because he was like 6'7". Put in this part. I can't remember what it was, but help them so that we could leave, and get but he's a pilot, right? He's a lieutenant colonel, and everyone was just like, just jaw dropped, but we appreciated it so much.
But that's it, right? Like, why wouldn't you step in and help out to help get everybody home, or pick up a broom and sweep up the floor when you see a mess? Like, it's not below your job in any way. Like, it is part of your job. To me, that's so critical. And I love that. And one of the things that have been most meaningful to me has been the times where I've been able to just walk around and talk to my team, talk to my young airmen, and let them teach me about what they do. I mean, can I do it as well as them? No, but if they can teach me how to drive a front loader, how to use their fire hose. And I say this because I've had civil engineers and firefighters underneath me, which is way outside my area of expertise, but I'm just letting them teach me. I'm going to learn a little bit. I know you're not going to ask me to go fight the next fire with you, but I'm going to at least try to learn, so that I make sure you have the resources you need. I make sure I can back you up. It's get outside of your office and walk around, talk to people, pick up the broom, whatever it takes.
Yes, it's like it says, nothing is beneath you. And we talked offline, and I wanted to bring up Colonel Stapleton, rest in peace, one of my favorite leaders ever. He was also a pilot, F-117 and 22. But when I was an FTAC instructor, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's pretty much like an onboarding week or two that happens for airmen. He would ask everyone in the room, all these airmen, he would point at one and be like, "What do you do?" And the kid would say their AFSC or whatever, and he'd be like, "This is how you affect the mission." And he knew every single job, and it was crazy. And to this day still gives me goosebumps. And the fact that, again, it comes back to the why, it comes back to you're purposeful here. And if we as leaders do not let that be known, they're not going to know. That's such a motivating piece to be able to do.
It's so much part of this wingman culture to be able to share with people, what role do you play in the bigger picture? And I think it's critical in any organization, not just the military. And it is this, what role do you play? How do you impact the bigger picture? And why is your success, why is you performing well so critical to the rest of the team? I think, everyone wants to feel like they're contributing, like they're making a difference and an impact. So, whether you're in the back shop, you're on the line, you're flying the airplane, whatever it is, everyone has a unique role to play. And so a leader's job is to help people understand where they fit into that bigger picture and what role they play.
Absolutely. And one of the things I want to touch on, I know you're sick of talking about this, but since everyone's probably came to hear this as well, obviously you were shot at one point, your aircraft was, and if you could just do a little debrief maybe on that, because I saw you just posted recently about your wingman.
Yeah. I did not survive that mission on my own. I mean, I don't know that, as a young cadet at the Air Force Academy, as a young pilot, I never could have imagined that I would be in that kind of position, that I would be flying a close air support mission in an A-10 over Baghdad and get hit by an enemy missile. Like, it's not something that you think about as like even in the realm of possible. But when that happened, and when I'm plunging to the ground out of control, my airplane is not responsive, like in that moment, all I'm doing is trying to get my airplane under control, but my wingman is next to me. And as soon as I tell him that I'm hit, like, he goes into this mode of just providing this guidance and direction and just doing all the things that I did not have the brain bites to do, right? He had the situational awareness that I didn't. And I honestly think that he is very much the reason that I was able to get home safely, to survive that mission. Thankfully the A-10 is designed to take hits. So I was able to get the airplane in this emergency backup situation. But like, it was still tough. I mean, the whole way home, I'm trying to decide, do I land? Do I eject? What do I do? And to have a wingman, right, to have somebody by my side providing that mutual support was huge. He was my flight lead, right? He was the more experienced person. But as soon as I got hit, he became my wingman. Like, he came right in next to me, stayed right beside me. And then I think probably one of the biggest things that resonates still with me today is he said that it was my decision whether or not to try to land the airplane or eject. And I felt like, as the flight lead, he could have easily said, here's what you should do. And instead, he had my back. He empowered me to make the decision. He had my back. And later someone asked him if it was hard for him to do that. And he just was so, like, matter of fact. He's like, no, Kim was a good pilot. I trusted her. And like, to have that confidence in somebody that, is higher up than you, like, he had that confidence in me, which then gave me this confidence in myself. But it was a reliance on all the training, the preparation. If I look back and debrief why I think I was successful and why I was able to make a decision, why I was able to respond in this moment of, honestly, fear and stress, I think it all comes down to the fact that I put in the work. I prepared for that mission. We had practiced these kinds of emergency procedures, and I had planned for this contingency. I'd thought about it. We had briefed it. We had practiced it in the simulators. And I really think that that's why, in that moment of stress, fear, uncertainty, like, it all came together. So when I don't think I realized that then. I think this has been, 20 years of reflection and trying to figure out, why in a moment that you could never expect, like, how do you respond? How do you make sure that when the situation demands it, you can execute? And to me, it comes down to that. I had an awesome wingman. I had put in the work. I had done the training. I had done all of the preparation. And in that moment, I was able to respond.
Absolutely. And I'm just so happy that you made it home safe. And I mean, in the excuse me, the book, you can read your whole career and everything that you busted your tail for to get to where you are in that moment,
Yeah.
So
it's like every hard thing that I did leading up to that, all those rejections and failures and mistakes, like, every hard thing made me better, so that in that moment I was ready and I was prepared, even if I was completely terrified, which I didn't think I was, because I was like, I wasn't scared. I didn't have time for that. But that's what the cockpit recorder is for. I could hear the fear in my voice when it happened.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. Just so glad you're here to be able to talk to this story and lead leaders into becoming better leaders. Like, you have so much depth and experience to be talked to. So I pray that everyone goes and checks out her book, Flying the Face of Fear. You usually go around 30 minutes. I could literally talk to you for hours. But thank you so much. And I wanted you to plug yourself. What do you have going on right now?
Well, in addition to the book, I mean, that's been the biggest thing. I am also doing some keynote speaking. In fact, I just got back from speaking to some engineers who worked on the A-10 engine. So it was this really cool opportunity to say thank you and to talk to them about that. But I've had the opportunity to kind of share the story and some of the lessons learned to business and corporate audiences, not just military, which is just really great opportunity to connect with people and learn from them. Doing some executive coaching as well. And then, taking care of my kids and my family, which is nice to have a little bit more time at home now that I'm retired.
Yes. And you treat yourself because you deserve it. I'm so glad that you have such an amazing career you can look back on, and like that's got to fill your cup, and just like, even if not that you are, but if you were not to be here past today, like you can feel like you lived a full life.
Yeah, I think, standing on that retirement stage, it's been almost 2 years now. Yeah, about 2 years. I think the thing that I was most proud of that was that my family was by my side. My kids who had grown up in this military environment, my husband who had also been on active duty, like we were there together at the end. And that to me is like, it wasn't easy. There were a lot of ups and downs, but I was thankful for my family by my side through it all. It's nice to look back on that, and it's also nice for this next chapter. It feels sometimes daunting getting out of the military because it's what we've known. It's that camaraderie. It's that sense of brotherhood and sisterhood. And there's actually a lot of purpose and passion that I found outside the military as well.
Yes, it never stops. Absolutely. And that's what I guess, for the transitioning veterans out there listening to this as well, your life doesn't stop just because you're out of the military. You can just take all that experience and beautify that somewhere else in your life.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many lessons we learned, and that we continue to learn, and to be able to share that with others. I think there's something very powerful in that, to share those experiences to help others.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much again today. Everybody go get that book, Flying in the Face of Fear. It's fantastic. I have highlighted so many parts of it, so it's really great. So thank you again for being on today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.